Hey, Salem County. I'm Joe Pritchett, career counselor at your Salem Community College, with the next installment in our series of roundtable discussions with leaders and influencers in multiple employment fields here in Salem County. This is an opportunity for those doing career exploration, and particularly during the time of COVID-19 and the fallout that results, to learn more about the various career pathways available to our county's residents. We're taking a slightly different approach today. Whereas our previous sessions focused more on specific career fields, today we're viewing a career field through a more personal lens. We're talking with 4 women who serve in executive leadership roles with various organizations around Salem County. As we begin, I'm going to ask each of our guests to introduce herself, tell us a little bit about her organization, and how she landed where she is. So we're going to start today with Cathy.
Hi, I'm Cathy Lochbaum. I am the director at the Salem County Board of Social Services, and I'm also the one-stop administrator for Salem County. Our organization provides public assistance services to residents of Salem County. Those programs include cash assistance, SNAP benefits, Medicaid. We also do counseling and case management, provide emergency assistance, a lot of safety net programs. On the one-stop side of the house, we provide training opportunities, career counseling services, and case management services to folks who are unemployed recently or trying to get back into the workforce or need assistance in trying to find a new career or different career opportunities.
All right, thank you. Let's move on I'll just go around my screen. Let's talk to Carly next.
Hey, good morning. I'm Carly Melchert. I am the Executive Director for Meals on Wheels of Salem County. Meals on Wheels delivers nutrition through the comfort of friendship to senior and disabled residents in Salem County. Meals on Wheels is so much more than just delivering those nutritious and medically appropriate meals. The part of our delivering more than just a meal is really true here. We're helping seniors to socialize, people who wouldn't otherwise get out of the home, and we do all of that through the opportunity of volunteers. How I got here, I went back to school in my mid-20s and pursued a degree in health promotion and fitness management, and really have always had the heart to want to be involved in giving back and helping those less fortunate than myself. So I worked in development for another nonprofit and really always knew that networking was the opportunity for connection. And then I loved the work that I was doing, but I was not working in Salem County, and this is where I grew up, where my heart is, and helping to feed seniors and care for seniors, also helping their families is also really part of my heart and part of my story. So landing here was really just perfect for me.
All right, let's talk to the one with the giant dog behind her head, Suanne.
Hi, good morning. I'm Suanne Lighty. I'm the Executive Director for Salem County Habitat for Humanity. I've been with Habitat for 11 years. Habitat's mission is affordable housing. We are one of the first habitats. We are that came up out of the South. We're the first in New Jersey. There are 23 Habitat affiliates, and we're all brothers and sisters and help each other. The way we fund our mission primarily is through our Restore, which has been closed since March 17th due to COVID. So that has been a challenge for me to keep the mission going. We are still building homes. We're well funded for our home builds. I'm also a realtor at Keller Williams. That's something I started doing about 15 years ago. I lost my job, which will kind of segue into the third question, but just getting there and preparing myself in my career helped me be a nonprofit director or have the opportunity to be one. when 20 years ago, I applied for such a job, but my career was customer service and widget counting and banking, and I just couldn't seem to break out of it. And when this opportunity became available, it really tied in my love for real estate, people. I have a building background. My grandparents were builders. So it really all just seemed to pull together.
Good, thank you. All right, how about you, Jody?
Hi, I'm Jody Veller, and I am currently the Executive Director of the Salem County Interagency Council of Human Services. And we are an independent nonprofit organization, and we do a lot of human services work, but we're almost I would say, like an intermediary organization. We are subcontracted by the County of Salem to handle a few of the human service issues. We also do a lot of grant writing for state and federal programs, and then the money we received from those programs goes out into our stakeholder groups. We have about, I'm going to say, 40 or 50 different nonprofits that we work with on a regular basis through the Human Services Advisory Council, the Youth Services Commission. So we kind of sit in between there, in between a governmental organization and a nonprofit.
Very nice. Well, I've had the privilege of getting to know each of you through various activities that we do here in Salem County. I think when I look around the screen at all of you, it's a different component for each one of you, a different part of my job that I've worked with each one of you in, and that's been one of the real joys of working in Salem County. I'd like to hear a little bit more about each of your jobs. What is it that you spend most of your time doing? And if there's part of your story that ties in with that current role, I know you've had the opportunity to talk a little bit about your journeys, but if there's something you'd like us to know a little more about how you got here and how that influences the way you do your job, I invite you to share that with the group as well. We're going to start this round with Suanne, and go ahead and tell us a little bit about your job.
Sure. That's a great question. I of course, I'm over 60 years old, and when I grew up, my dad thought that I should be a secretary like my mom and not go to college. I was very hard-headed, wanted to go to college. So I went for a year, but it was probably the most miserable year of my life because all my friends stayed over at college. I had to commute. It just didn't fit, and my dad really didn't want to make it easy. So I got married. Then from being married, I still had the dream of getting my degree, and I signed up for classes at the community college. And from working mom, raising 2 children, being married, I was able to finish my 2-year degree, and then I transferred to an adult program in Delaware at Wesley College, where I finished my 4-year degree. And looking back, I could have never had the opportunity for the job I have now with Habitat had I not sucked that up. And I know a lot of people right now are raising families. They have children. Maybe they don't have the support I had, but getting that education, volunteering, doing things for your professor. I had to ride the train a lot from Wilmington to New York. I worked in New York a lot. And there was a Dr. Pasler that was at this community college. And he would give me what he would call an independent study. And I would do course outlines. And back then they were the slides with the overhead projector. And I would make presentations for him for his classes, follow the course outline and do that. And that was a kind of outside the box way to get some credits because I still liked to go see my kids play Little League and soccer. And I'd show up and I'd still have, I had no laptop back then. So, I had to make do. But getting my degree and the start I got from Salem Community College, I took liberal arts at first, but I did get a degree in business administration. But the classes I could fill in the most that I liked the best were art classes. So I still like to paint. My latest painting behind me. Kind of my hobby, my release. So you still need something like that in your life.
All right, how about you, Jody?
Got there.
And I'm going to dovetail off of Suanne's because, again, I was born at the tail end of the baby boomers, portion of Generation X, and there were not a lot of careers open for women. And the expectation was that you were either going to get married or you were going to be a secretary, maybe a teacher or a nurse if you were ambitious enough. So I didn't go to college right out of school. I bounced around for a little bit, and my father finally had enough of me. And basically forced me into a career in law enforcement because that was big in our family. And I did 11 years with the Department of Corrections in Middlesex County. And I left on an ordinary disability retirement, but I had made sergeant by that time. And there were days when I was literally running a 1,200 bed facility, out of a master control unit, while 50 men underneath you who all thought they could do the job better gave you a hard time every day. So I basically just got done with that, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So when I left, I bounced around for a while, and I had moved into South Jersey and found a program called AmeriCorps. And I became a volunteer through AmeriCorps, and that was my first introduction to the nonprofit sector. And AmeriCorps had lent me out to this little teeny tiny nonprofit that was on the spearhead of the urban agriculture movement. And that's where my career started. After that, working with that organization, I got a job out in Trenton with a big nonprofit, Isles Incorporated. They're still out there. And I became their urban agriculture specialist in the city at a time when no one really knew what urban agriculture was. Building gardens, doing a lot of community outreach. And at some point, I realized that I was hitting a glass ceiling because of my lack of education. And I went back to college at 43 years old. And I am still in college. I am now currently working on a doctorate, online distance education through a faith-based university. But there's no shortcuts in the nonprofit sector. You're coming from the bottom up, and it's a good thing. I consider myself a generalist because I have done a lot of different jobs in the nonprofit sector, each one progressively more demanding and progressively higher in the chain of command. But it's given me, I consider myself like a generalist, like a general contractor. I know a little bit about everything. I don't specialize in one specific field anymore, like food security or housing. I kind of do a little bit of everything, which is why the IAC suits me in a way, because they do a lot across the field of human services. And I've always been particularly fond of organizational development as well.
I won't say much, but I am intrigued already, these first two answers. The concept of fit, right? Suanne talked about building and all that, and then Jody talked about, just have done so much, kind of have that generalist feel, and this is a good fit.
Yeah.
So let's find out from Carly if this is a good fit for her.
Joe, I do think that Meals on Wheels is a good fit for me. My job has certainly changed, and what my day-to-day looks like has changed as a result of COVID. Meals on Wheels does not have funding through the county. We are not a county-funded program. We do receive some of our funding through federal grants, but most of our budget is made up of fundraising, which is challenging right now, especially because we have always been an organization that is very heavy on actual events. And so my job previously included me doing a lot of networking, which I do think suits me very well. I never would have guessed that something like that would have suited me. I also have a yoga background, and that really helped to change my world and make me better at being really good at going in and having conversation with people that I don't know. So that has really changed. There's not a lot of networking going on now. I'm doing a lot of grant writing, which I'm not afraid to say is not my favorite part of the job. It's really not. It's actually the one that makes me want to cringe my teeth the most. And so I have written a lot of grants this year as a result of COVID. And I really do miss the opportunity where I am going out and connecting with people. You know, that's what we do. That's in nonprofit, you have to connect. I've brought people into the organization from my previous background, and you know, you just never know when you're going out networking who you can pull in different ways, or how you guys can benefit each other. So that is what my day-to-day used to look like. Now it includes a lot of this, a lot of Zoom, and trying to find ways to still connect and get the word out there. Thankfully, I have a very strong staff. I am not a micromanager. I'm certainly not going to helicopter over you. So they've done very well with me having to be all over the place. And sometimes I'm working from home and sometimes I'm working from the office. And they're doing a very good job of holding it down and keeping the train moving. Similar to the other ladies, this was not where I had originally saw myself ending up. When I first graduated high school, I thought I wanted to be a teacher, but I really like small children and did not want to work in daycare. And I wound up taking care of my grandmother who had Alzheimer's when I went back to school in my 20s. So when I say that this is a good fit for me, it is a very good fit for me because I really am able to have the understanding of what it is like for a family member who is just at their wit's end trying to care for someone. They just need a break, and to really see what it's like for someone who's aging and is losing their ability to care for themselves or just needs that social connection. Because my family wasn't aware of Meals on Wheels when my grandma first started with dementia. And it does always weigh on my heart that would she have had a few more years of good health if she had that person checking in on her every day before that was my and my sister's role. So my heart is what leads me through this job every single day. So yes, I think it's a good fit.
Cathy, your organization is a little unique to the rest of them that are here, but go ahead and tell us a little bit about kind of your role and what gives you energy and fit.
So what's interesting is this was not something I obviously set out to be as an executive director. And my story is a little bit different. I did go to college right out of high school. My father was a teacher, and he stressed education very much so in our family, and talked about it like it was the next thing you did. When you graduated from high school, you're going to college. That's what you're going to do. My mom never went to college. My father went to college when we were young. He went to school while he was married and had young children. He graduated college when my parents had 3 children, and he taught, and so that was kind of the basis for all of us growing up in terms of education. It was important. So I became an accountant. That's what my background is, in accounting. So I got out of college. I worked at Rowan University, which is where I went to school at. Back then it was called Glassboro State College. And from that role there, I worked there when I was in college. I was hired full-time when I got out of college. I ended up going into the auditing world, the Department of Human Services, for the Department of Human Services. So through that, I became aware of job opening where I currently work. I was young. It was a fiscal officer position, which is basically the equivalent of a chief financial officer of an organization. And I applied and got the job. And what's interesting about that is I was in my mid-20s at the time. probably not as prepared as I should have been for a role like that. There are millions, tens of millions of dollars that go through an organization like that. And I really didn't have quite the experience that could have made it a little bit easier for myself. But what I did when I got there was I found some really good people that helped me, mentored me, not in the organization, in other organizations, people who had similar roles, people who worked at the state level, who knew how things were supposed to work. That was invaluable to me, especially looking back. At the time, I think it was a move of desperation, but actually looking back, it became such an invaluable piece of my growth in the job. I had the job for 15 years, and then the executive director position became available, and I was interested. I liked the idea of a change. I felt like I had managed the financial part of the organization for long enough, and I wanted something different, and it was energizing. And what's interesting about getting this position is that I had no programmatic background at all, only my interaction in terms of the financial part of things. But it was such a great challenge. And we had some big challenges when I first came on board because the recession hit. And obviously, when everybody else is losing their job, our business is booming. We also had the Affordable Care Act was implemented since I've been the executive director, which also increased our workload quite a bit. The most challenging and satisfying thing that I do, to me, is to improve service delivery systems so that we can touch as many people in a positive way as we can. Our county is small, but our need is great. And I feel a huge responsibility on taking the funds that we have and trying to stretch them and make meaningful, appropriate decisions on how we serve the folks in our county so that their lives are better in some way after any interaction that they have with us. So I've been the executive director now for 15 years. I was the fiscal officer for 15 years before that. In 2016, I became the one-stop administrator, which coordinates really our public assistance programs with folks who need jobs. We already were interacting with the one-stop system as public assistance administrators, but this has opened our world really quite a bit in terms of really putting a holistic approach to serving folks and identifying what their needs are and helping them reach a better point in their lives than where they were when they came in to see us first. So to me, it's been, that part's rewarding. It's challenging, but I love it. I absolutely love the management. I think the most difficult part is I have about 100 staff, and that is difficult at times, trying to encourage people, trying to coach people, trying to make decisions that affect everyone, taking the responsibility, especially in this era of COVID, I think has been my most challenging time in terms of managing people, understanding that we have work to do, but also being sensitive to the needs of staff, and making decisions that are equally applied and fair to everyone, but being committed to our mission as well. So it's been a journey, but I loved it. And I still love it. I still love it. So hopefully the journey continues.
I'm going to jump in for just a minute here. Have you ever had guests over and you got to talking around the table and you were having so much fun that you kind of lost track of the time? Well, that's sort of what happened to us today in this conversation. Each of my guests has such a great story and is doing such amazing work in Salem County that we couldn't contain it to a short episode. So we're going to pause for now, and we'll pick up again in our next episode. Make sure you join us for that one as we get some advice from each of our guests as to what they would tell a woman who is in a different situation, a different stage of life, about how to get into this executive track. Hope you have a great day. And again, thanks for joining us.